SIL pulls cruel prank triggering my past trauma, I lash out and family cuts her off. Now she's trying to play the victim and turn them against me. I, 27F, have been with my husband Aaron, 27M, for 3 years and we've known each other for 6. He has an older sister Sophie, 30F, and that's who's caused this entire commotion in the family that I'm going to talk about. So 3 weeks ago, Sophie asked me if I'd be willing to accompany her on an all-women family holiday to Spain with her, my mother-in-law, and my husband's cousin Nadia, 27F. Nadia and Aaron are a lot closer than he and Sophie in spite of being first cousins as opposed to biological siblings because they were in the same grade and went to the same high school, so as a result, I'm a lot closer to Nadia as well. Initially, I wasn't too inclined to go on a family vacation because I didn't think it'd be that fun with Sophie and my mill, but afterward, Nadia and I had a chat and she told me that she wanted a break, so she was willing to go and wanted me to come along, too. She convinced me and I agreed to go on the trip. Sophie was the one sponsoring the flight tickets and the stay at the hotel, which wasn't a problem for her whatsoever because she was filthy rich, thanks to her husband who is a neurosurgeon. She runs an event management company, but everyone knows that the company pretty much runs itself. She just doesn't want to come off as a socialite who doesn't work. She has a degree in literature, but she's never used it and believes that college had been a total waste of time for her, except for the part where she met her current husband through a friend of hers at a party. Aaron has told me that Sophie has been spoiled rotten by her parents ever since childhood, and whatever she wanted, she got. That has extended into adulthood, and even now, she thinks that just sulking, pouting and the silent treatment will be enough to manipulate people into doing what she wants. It doesn't help that her husband and her parents still encourage such infantile behavior, but Aaron, Nadia, and I know when to ask her to cut the crap so she doesn't try to behave the same way with us. If I'm being honest, I've never particularly liked Sophie, but since she's never been outright mean to me, I've put up with her for the sake of the family. Anyway, I agreed to go on that trip with her, and 3 days back, we were finally about to leave. The airport is kind of far away from my house, so I had to leave early, and I ended up reaching there about half an hour early as well. I was pretty bored while waiting for the rest of the party to arrive, so I decided to go scroll through my phone instead. That morning itself, unfortunately, my phone's vibration motor stopped working, and so it wasn't buzzing whenever I received a notification like it usually does. I didn't have the time to repair it that day, so I decided I'd do it once I returned from the holiday. It was purely by luck that I had been on my phone when I received the message. I received an image from Sophie where she'd sent me the screenshot of text she'd received from a number I didn't recognize. The conversation had an image followed by a text, and once I downloaded it, I opened the image to check out the contents because it felt bizarre that Sophie was sending me the screenshot of someone else's conversation. As soon as I did, my blood froze because the picture had been clicked right outside of my house by someone who had a pair of scissors in their left hand. Within seconds, I received another message from the same number: "Tell your darling brother's wife that I'm back." Sophie followed that screenshot up by saying that she'd received this text from an unknown number a couple of minutes ago and that she was terrified because she thought Aaron was in danger now. That was all I needed to go into panic mode because I actually have a history of being stalked, and it was literally the single most terrifying phase of my life. Back when I was in college, I had a stalker who would randomly click pictures of me from the back and send them to me throughout the day. He wouldn't text me on my number but would use dummy social media accounts to talk to me. He'd ask me to meet him at certain spots but he'd never show up. I wouldn't go unarmed, and I was trained in jiu-jitsu, but even then I felt very afraid of what would happen. This went on for 2 whole months and I didn't tell anyone because I was scared of what he might do if I did. Initially, I'd tried to get the guy to stop, but he texted me and told me that if I breathed even a word of this to anyone then I'd be in big trouble, and had even sent me a similar picture from right outside my parents' house to threaten me, scissors and all. I was terrified, so I didn't tell anyone and just kept silently praying for my safety whenever I'd have to attend classes. After the first few weeks, I stopped leaving my dorm room for anything but classes and food, and eventually, it got to a point where I refused to leave my room at all because I kept receiving pictures of myself so frequently. It was then that my roommate finally realized that something was wrong and forced me to tell her, and after that, we went to the police to report this. Within a few days, an arrest had been made, and very ironically, it happened to be a guy from the computer engineering department. He was a senior and had a history of making girls on campus feel creeped out or harassed. Unfortunately, he'd taken a liking to me, and so, he'd started stalking me, and because he specialized in cyber safety, he was able to find out a lot about me from my social media accounts, which happened to be public at the time. He'd also simultaneously been stalking another girl who hadn't reported this for the same reasons as me. Once he was caught, he was kicked out of college, and that was the end of him terrorizing me and other women. From what I heard, his parents took him back after a couple of days and he ended up back in his home country. It's been several years since that and I had almost forgotten about him, but as soon as I saw that image, all the terror came rushing back and I instantly called 911. I told Sophie to get to my house ASAP, but luckily, forgot to mention that I'd called the cops already because I was more concerned about trying to warn Aaron instead. I got a cab within minutes and started trying to call my husband desperately because I knew that he was still asleep. It was 8 in the morning at the time, and my husband has a tendency to sleep late on the weekends, so I knew it wouldn't be easy for me to get through to him, but luckily, he did answer me when I called him for a third time. I could tell that he'd just woken up because he sounded drowsy, but I didn't have time to spare, so I told him to arm himself with something heavy, lock himself in the bedroom, and block the door somehow. He was confused, but as soon as I mentioned the picture, he told me he understood and did as I told him. I stayed on call with him throughout the 45-minute cab ride home, even as the cops arrived and inspected the house. I did not check my phone in the meantime, and since the vibration feature was gone, I wasn't getting any physical reminders from the notifications to remind me either. By the time I reached home, their inspection was almost over and they hadn't found anyone suspicious in the vicinity. I was having a full-blown panic attack by the time I reached home, and it took me several minutes and half a bottle of water to finally calm down. The cops told me that they'd run the phone number through the system and the only name that had come up was Theo Wilson. That wasn't my stalker's name, but a fake name for his phone number would be totally feasible. By then, I'd forgotten about Sophie and my phone and hadn't checked it in a while because I was just so relieved to see that Aaron was safe. The cops who'd come to my house informed me that they'd sent 2 cops separately to pay this person after the cyber crime department had tracked the sender and were currently bringing them to the police station. Aaron and I headed over to the nearest police station, and within a few minutes of our arrival, Sophie was dragged in by 2 cops while she sobbed violently. I think most people have been able to guess what happened by now, and yeah, it's exactly what you guys think. For whatever reason, Sophie had thought that it would be a good idea to pull a prank on me this morning just to mess with me a little before our trip. She'd met a friend of mine from college for work a couple of days back, and of course, I'd come up while they were discussing families, and once they discovered the connection, my old college mate told her all about my stalker in college, which was something I'd become very popular for. I'm not bragging, but after the stalker incident, my popularity among the students and teachers alike had pretty much skyrocketed because everyone likes a good scandal. I never thought it was fun to be pointed at and whispered about, but people had remembered, and I guess we're still talking about it. After finding out about my past stalker, Sophie had decided that she was going to prank me on the morning of our flight, and it'd be fun. So she'd used a phone number that she'd taken up a couple of days ago under a fake name just for this purpose to text herself an image that she'd clicked a few days ago, right in front of our house, with the scissors and an outstretched arm. Of course, now that I paid attention to the hand that I saw in the photo, I could tell it wasn't a man's hand at all, but she'd made the effort to remove her nail paint, so when I received that picture the first time, it was hard for me to tell while being so panic-stricken at the very idea. The fear had messed with my mind, and I'd missed a lot of important things that hinted at this being a prank, but at the end of the day, it didn't matter. It had been a traumatic thing for me back in college, and the thought of going through that again really scared me, especially when Aaron and his safety were at risk. It wasn't fun at all, and ended with an embarrassing visit to the police station where she was let off with a warning, and Aaron and I ended up wasting our time and energy worrying about the return of my stalker when we had nothing to worry about. I was beyond angry when I left the station and just let her have it. I must have screamed at her for more than 15 minutes, and by the time I was done, she was bawling again, but I didn't care. She'd tried to make a mockery out of something that was a really traumatic and scary experience for me, and because of her own stupidity, she'd landed us all in an embarrassing situation. So she could cry her tears all she wanted, but I wasn't going to feel even an iota of sympathy for her. Aaron and I drove back home that day, and on the ride back home, I told Nadia all about what had happened, and even she ended up canceling the trip because, let's be real, nobody wants to hang out with someone like Sophie after they go above and beyond in their stupidity. That entire day, I did nothing but try to calm my nerves because it had been a crazy morning and I still hadn't gotten over the stalker scare. The threat had felt very real at the time, and even after finding out it wasn't real, it was very difficult for me to shake off the fear because it had been the darkest time for me when it happened back in college, and I'll admit, I was still pretty spooked by it. That day I didn't talk to anyone apart from Aaron and a little to Nadia. I didn't get any notifications either because I'd turned my phone off for the day. I'd had enough. It was only 2 days ago that I found out that my Mill and Sophie had pretty much filled my entire inbox with their messages regarding how I had been the one to overreact at a silly little prank, and that it had been cruel of me to tell Nadia to back out of the vacation as well. I hadn't even told Nadia to not go on the trip, I just told her about what Sophie had done. The decision not to go on the trip was hers alone, and I had no part in it. Apparently, Nadia and Aaron had turned everyone against Sophie, and now, nobody in the family wanted to speak to her after what she'd done, including my own father-in-law, her dad. Mill and Sophie think that I'm the one behind this, but I hadn't even told anyone about what had happened. I couldn't have because I didn't even use my phone that day, and it was all Nadia and Aaron who'd informed the other cousins and generally just the younger folks of the family who were now cutting Sophie off. They think that I'm the one who now owes Sophie an apology because what she did was just a harmless prank, but what's happening to her is real and hurtful. She's being cut off by her own family, and that's why now she's the victim here. I spoke to Aaron about this after I read their texts, and he told me that there's no reason for me to feel sorry for her at all, and neither do he and Nadia feel sorry for telling everyone else about this. What she did to me was undoubtedly cruel and not just a harmless prank. It would have been harmless if it didn't trigger my past trauma to the point of making me unable to think or do anything else for an entire day, but we all know the mental toll that it took on me. I agreed because it wasn't harmless at all, and I'd been paralyzed with anxiety for one whole day because of what she did, so now, she deserved every bit of this. Plus she didn't even apologize to me and just kept crying, so I don't know why she even expected me to feel sorry for her when she didn't feel sorry for me. I think that's very hypocritical of her, but I don't expect any less. After I read the texts and spoke to Erin about it, I was just going to ignore her because I had no intention of wasting my own time by speaking to her and trying to reason with her, but she just kept texting me again and again. It was clear that she was just trying to make me feel guilty about what had happened, and I knew that she fully believed that she could manipulate me into apologizing and getting the family back on good terms with her again. It just got on my nerves after a while, so in a moment of frustration, I actually ended up responding to her. I texted her back saying that I was glad she'd chosen to play such an insensitive and cruel prank on me because that just revealed what an awful piece of work she was to everyone, and she only had herself to thank for the situation she was in right now. I also told her that I had nothing to do with the other relatives cutting her off, but I wish I did because then I'd have the satisfaction of knowing that I'd helped in cleaning up the trash from the family. I ended the message by saying that she was as much of a pig on the inside as she was on the outside, referring to the fact that she was slightly on the chubby side. I'm not generally someone who judges people by their bodies because I have been bullied for my own body in the past for being excessively skinny, but here, I just wanted Sophie to feel bad. I knew she was insecure about her weight, so that's where I chose to hit her because I knew it'd hurt. I don't know if I was too hard on her, but I did feel good after I sent that message. I'd tried very hard to keep my opinions to myself and my temper under control, but she just kept texting me and went on pushing and pushing until I finally lost it. So I replied to her and called her trashy because that's how I felt about her after the prank she'd tried to pull off. I used to tolerate her earlier despite her spoiled and insensitive behavior, but this was way beyond my tolerance now. I kept my phone aside after sending her that text and tried to distract myself by watching a movie and only came back to my phone after 3 hours. When I finally checked my messages, there was a new message from Sophie where she said that she'd considered me a good friend of hers all along, and that's why she'd expected me to forgive a tiny mistake of hers without her having to beg for forgiveness, since it was implied that she was sorry. I don't know what that means, but I guess that made sense to her. Then she said that if I was just going to be rude to her, then I shouldn't have replied to her at all instead of going out of my way to be horrible and make her feel like crap. I should have just ignored her like I was earlier, but I chose to be cruel just to hurt her, which made me just as trashy as her. I don't like Sophie much, but she does have a point, I guess, and maybe I shouldn't have said the things I said. I was just really angry with whatever she'd done, and the way she was still trying to pin the blame on me instead of accepting that she screwed up was making me feel even angrier. She's the one who kept pushing me by trying to gaslight me into believing that this was somehow my fault, and I just couldn't take that, so I guess I went a little too low. The only thing I feel bad for is shaming her for her weight because I know how bad that feels. However, I still don't think she has any right to even approach me and demand an apology after what she did to me. If she'd just been a decent person and owned up to her fault, maybe we wouldn't be here at all. Erin doesn't think I should apologize because she deserved to be called out. She'd hurt me first and then continued to try and hurt me by gaslighting me and manipulating me by insisting that she was somehow the victim here. He doesn't think I should even feel sorry for her. Nadia, on the other hand, does think I was a little too hard on her, so I'm divided right now and have no clue on how to go about this right now. And that's why I'm here to ask the Reddit community to help me out right now, because I would hate to stoop to the same levels as Sophie just to get back at her. I love Erin, but he's not always the best person when it comes to emotional situations like these. And I also love Nadia, but she's a little too emotional, unlike Erin, and what I need right now is completely unbiased judgment, keeping in mind the circumstances. So AITA for calling my heavy SIL a pig to insult her insecurities after she tried to pull a prank on me that made light of my past trauma? Update 1. Hey, so I read the comments on my original post and I respect everyone's opinions, but I couldn't help myself and did apologize to Sophie for the pig comment that I made. I'm not sorry about anything else that I said, but I just couldn't live with myself knowing that I'd attacked someone for the way they look, knowing how bad it had made me feel when I'd gone through the same thing in the past. So as someone who knows how it feels to be bullied for things that are not in my control, I think I did what I had to get this thing off my conscience. I just sent the apology text 5 minutes ago and she hasn't opened it yet, but I hope she does and accepts it. Although I'll be fine even if she doesn't, because I'll know that I tried my best, and after that, it's up to her if she wants to accept the apology or not. I'm not speaking to my mill, though. She had no part to play in any of this, so I don't know why she felt the need to rush to her daughter's defense, especially when she knew what Sophie had done was wrong. Literally, all of her texts were like, yeah, Sophie screwed up, but... or I understand why you're mad. So if she knows why I'm annoyed at Sophie, then why exactly does she expect me to apologize to Sophie? Doesn't even make sense. Honestly, I just think she wants me to feel bad for Sophie, but I'm 100% sure that had our places been swapped and I had done something like this to Sophie, then she wouldn't have had the same attitude. That's for sure. Erin isn't too happy that I chose to apologize, but he thinks that I'm a good human being, and that's why I'm going so easy on his brat of a sister. Nadia is happy about my decision and even said that she's really proud of me. So I guess I'm okay with what I did. Update 2. Sophie just responded to my apology. It's been several hours since I sent that text, and just half an hour ago, she replied saying that it was fine, but she didn't expect any better anyway. She said that she was a little shocked, but it's fine because she understands now that we're not friends, never were, and definitely won't be in the future. For what it's worth, at least she did say that she was sorry for trying to mess with me and using something so traumatic against me. Had she known that there would be such horrible consequences, then she never would have gone ahead with the prank at all. I mean, I don't think she should have gone ahead with a prank like that in any case, regardless of the circumstances, because it's just gross and disrespectful, but at least there was an apology. She was very passive-aggressive about the whole thing, and I could tell she'd racked her brains to try and come up with something that would be equal parts infuriating and apologetic, and had finally concocted this sorry excuse of an apology. But hey, something's better than nothing, right? And at least this way, I don't have to continue feeling guilty about what I said and will be able to move on without thinking about my own harsh words. I'm done and dusted with this whole episode. Now onwards, there will be no more Sophie in our lives, and that's the best thing that came out of this whole incident. Update 3. Hey, everyone. So it's been about a month since the last update, and last week, Nadia found out that she was pregnant. So there was a huge pregnancy announcement party where everyone was invited with the exception of Sophie, because nobody has spoken to or heard from her after they cut her off. She deactivated her socials for a while and had been completely MIA, but Aaron had checked in with his dad and they reassured us that she was alright, just taking a break from everything social. At the time of the party, though, she sent Nadia a text that wished her luck on this journey that she was about to embark upon. The usual best wishes for a happy and healthy pregnancy, but with a sprinkle of Sophie's classic passive aggressiveness. She probably couldn't resist the opportunity to become the talk of the town, since there was finally a huge family event that she'd been excluded from, and so she'd sent Nadia a holier-than-thou message about how she wished she could be there with her on such a happy occasion but couldn't because of prior commitments, completely ignoring the fact that she wasn't invited. She said that she would have loved to see me, Aaron, and the other family members once more, but she'd learned to put herself first and was trying not to let other negative energies bring her down, referring to us because apparently we were the negative ones here and not her. It was just a load of baloney, and we had a good laugh about it while reading that message. We didn't give her the satisfaction of becoming the hot topic at the party either, because we kept that text to ourselves and didn't tell anyone else. It was just ridiculous how badly she wanted to be a part of things but wouldn't apologize at all. She can choose to suffer in silence, but clearly, that's too much for her to handle. We'd really thought that she'd change for the better after her social media detox, maybe she'd introspect and become a better person, but nah, she's still Sophie. Good for her, I guess. At least we were entertained by her wonderfully hilarious text.